Hey there, Patriots. Time to get started on our next lesson, and we're finally going to be putting a whole bunch of stuff together. We've talked a whole lot in the last few weeks about slopes and y-intercepts and points, and now it's time to actually put those together and see how the equation of a line affects the graph of a line. And so now we're going to be putting that all together and taking the big thrust of today is we're going to take any equation that you see in slope-intercept form or in point slope form and putting it onto the graph. So let's go ahead and dive into our equation here. Okay, so the equation in slope-intercept form, if you remember from the last time, is y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So what we're going to do is take those two pieces of information and use that to generate our graph. I'm going to go ahead and pull my straight edge over here so that I can make nice, smooth lines. And it's also a good idea, if you're doing this by hand, to just take out something, an ID, driver's license if you have one, a health card, I don't know, whatever it is, just something nice straight edge, ruler if you got one too. That's the best option. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our y-intercept, which is, I'm going to highlight in blue, and realize that it's always going to take the sign of the number of the constant. So in this case, my y-intercept is -2. Let me do that in the same color so it can be consistent. My y-intercept is -2. So I'm going to go over to my graph, and I'm going to start at the origin at 0, 0, and I'm going to go down by 2 units and put my dot. Now in reality, I'm not actually going to draw those two. I'm just going to draw this. That was just for illustration purposes. Now I'm going to take a look at my slope. And my slope is the number in front of x, the coefficient of x, which in this case is 1/2. Now remember that slope is also always rise over run. So I'm going to rise 1 and run 2. But the place I'm going to start is at that y-intercept point that I've already drawn. I'm going to rise 1 and run 2. Going to rise 1 and run 2. Rise 1, run 2. I can even go the opposite direction. I could rise 1 and run 2. Notice I went down there. The idea is that since 1/2 is a positive slope, it has to rise as I go from left to right. But if I'm going from right to left, then I've got to fall. So again, fall 1, run 2. Now, it doesn't matter how many of these points you get, they're all going to be in a straight line. And what we're going to then do is take our ruler, and draw the line across the graph. So that's what we're doing on this. Your steps are identify slope and y-intercept, plot the y-intercept, and then from the y-intercept, plot the next several points. So let's go ahead and do this. And just to remind myself, I had yellow and green. My y-intercept here is my y-intercept here is -4, and my slope is 2. So m equals 2, and remember we always write those as fractions, and this lesson today is the reason why we always write them as fractions. Also make sure you have your negative sign on there for -4. So same process I had earlier. I'm going to start at the origin and go down 1, 2, 3, 4 and put my dot, and now I'm going to rise 2 and run 1. Rise 2, run 1. Rise 2, run 1. Do that several times until you can get enough to make sure you get a straight line with your graph, or with your straight edge. Plot it, and there we go. All right, example number 2. Again, our slope is 1/2. Our y-intercept here is +3. So m equals 1/2. B equals +3. So same process as before. Go to your y-intercept. 1, 2, 3. Went up 3 on the axis. Again, rise 1, run 2. Rise 1, run 2. Rise 1, run 2. And I can go the other direction as well. So far, all these slopes have been positive, so they're all rising from left to right, because that's what Slope Dude would say. Puff, puff, positive. All right, there's our graph. Okay. Now we're going to jump in. Here our slope is -2 and our y-intercept is -4. M equals -2, always a fraction, so over 1, and b equals -4. Okay, same process as before. Do the slope or the y-intercept first. Go down 1, 2, 3, 4. Plot the point. And now this time, since it's a -2 over 1 for the slope, I am going to fall 2 and then run 1. Fall 2, run 1. It's still a rise. It's just a rise in the negative direction. Okay, I can go the other direction. Over 1 and 2, over 1 and 2. As long as my line is trending down, that's what matters. I'm going to come in and draw my line. And notice how I'm putting my arrows on both ends. We want to go ahead and get in the habit of that for all of our lines. Always put your arrows on both ends. Okay, now we're going to have a y-intercept, a slope of -2 and a y-intercept of 3. M equals -1/2. I think I said that wrong a second ago. I'm sorry. Whatever I said earlier, ignore it. Slope is -1/2. Okay, same process. We're going to go up to a +3 on my y-intercept. 1, 2, 3. And then slope of -1 over 2 means I fall 1, run 2. Fall 1, run 2. Fall 1, run 2. Again, I could go the other direction as well. Over 2, rise 1. Over 2, rise 1. Now, the main gist of all this is that if you do the exact same steps in the same order, you're less likely to make results. So always get in the habit of identifying slope and y-intercept, plot your y-intercept, then plot your slope. Okay, second up, point slope form. Now, I'm going to go down and do this identifying parts section first, and we'll come back and do this graph in a second. Now, we practiced this the other day in I guess, the first lesson of this unit. What we're going to really focus in on here is what is the slope and what is the point here. Now, the slope is that number out in front. That's going to be, or in front of the parentheses, 2 over 1. Now, the y-intercept, the point that we're going to deal with is made up of these two. Because if you remember, our equation was y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And, as we said a few days ago, this negative sign in both, these two negative signs are mathematical shorthand for change the sign. The sign is different than what you think it should be. So when I jump over here to my point, the point that I'm going to be using, the x value is 3, but I've got to change the sign to be +3. Here the y value is 7, and again change the sign to make it +7. Okay, on number 2, my slope here is still 2. Now, my point is made up of this 3 and this -4, but once again, remember that we have to change the signs. The 3 becomes a -3, and the 4 becomes a +4. And let's make sure that we're putting them in the correct positions. I know that the way this is written, the y is on the left and the x is on the right. By that I mean the y1 is on the left and the y2 is on the right. You've got to put them in the right order. It's always an x, y coordinate pair. Make sure you're putting those in the right position. Okay, on this next one, my slope here is 1/2. And the point comes from this -8 and this 3. But again, remember, change your signs. This -8 becomes +8, and this 3 becomes -3. Okay, here my slope is 5 over 4. And my point comes from here, this 3 and this 10. And again, remember, change the signs. X comes first with -3. Y comes first or second with -10. So identify your slope, identify your point, and then once you've done that, we'll show you how to get that taken care of, or how to get the graph taken care of. Here, slope is 2/3. The point comes from the -9 and the -2. And again, we're going to swap the signs. X first becomes +9. Y second becomes +2. Now, what do you do with these two? Well, instead of having a y-intercept, we have a point to start on. So we're going to jump over here to 9, 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, +2. And we're going to graph that point. Now, we're just going to apply our slope to that point, the same way we did on the other side of the page with the y-intercept. So normally, we're going to rise 2 and then run 1, 2, 3. Now, but the problem with doing that is that it's going to take us off the graph. So we can go the opposite direction just like we practiced on the other side of the sheet. What we're going to do is we're going to, again, rise 2 and run 1, 2, 3. Rise 2, run 1, 2, 3. Now, again, it might feel weird going down 2 for a rise, but as long as your line is trending up and it shows a positive slope, then you are okay. So there is my line. All right, let's try number 5 over here and see what we can come up with. Here our slope is 1/2. And my y-intercept, I'm sorry, not my y-intercept, my point comes from the -8 and the 3, and it is 8, -3. Make sure you're changing those signs. So we're going to jump over here to 5, 6, 7, 8. -3 is 1, 2, 3. And then our slope of 1/2, rise 1, run 2. We were able to get that point. Now we're going to rise 1, run 2, rise 1, run 2, following the same path. And there we go. Okay, moving right along, we're going to look at this one. Our slope here is 5/4, and that's a positive 5/4. Our points are going to come from the 3 and the 10. And again, we're going to switch those, put the x first and the y first, so those both end up negative. And now if I jump to -1, 2, 3, -10, I end up right here. Now I'm going to rise 5 and run 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. And then just draw the line. Sometimes my ruler is kind of more effort than it's worth. But I want nice, crisp, straight lines. So there we go. Last two, same process. Slope here is -1/2. And then my point comes from the 8 and the 3. Again, switch those signs. The x goes first, the y goes second. Those are both negative now, -8, -3. So now I go over to -8, -1, 2, 3. And now my rise and run is going to be a negative slope, so I'm going to be going down across. So that's going to be down 1, right 2, down 1, right 2, down 1, right 2. Plot the line, and there it is. All right, last one. Same song, different verse. Slope is -2, which remember we write as -2/1. Our point is going to be, switch those signs. Looks like they're both positive. So we got +3, +3. So over on my graph, I go to 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 right there. Then I start applying my slope. Again, it's negative, so it's going to fall from left to right. So we're going down 1, 2, run 1. Down 2, run 1. And now plot the lines. So here's what I hope you're seeing on this. We're literally doing the exact same thing every time. Plot your initial point. For slope-intercept form, that's going to be a y-intercept. Okay, up here you're plotting your y-intercept first. On your point slope, goes right there. On point slope, it is just another point. Plot that point first, then go through and apply your slope, and you are good to go. Good luck on your assignment.